Welcome to another episode of A Closer Look, an Upper Valley community talk show. And today, I'm Donna Giroux, the Executive Director of CATV. And with me today, I was very lucky and I managed to get one of our local artists, Aline Ordman. And welcome,
Thank you.
Aline. I am so glad you're here, and I'm thrilled that you're willing to give us a little demo while we were chatting.
Yes.
So I'm hoping our camera picks up some of your work.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you a few questions while you work, if
All
that's
right.
okay.
That sounds great. And I'll just keep working because I know we're on a time limit.
Oh, yeah.
So ask away. I'm very comfortable.
That's great.
Talking.
So I was, being new to the area, I was poking around and seeing some of the local artists because we wanted to buy some local art. And I noticed actually the piece that you have here, which it's a landscape piece. It's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
And so I thought, wow, she can do that with pastel. So are you just a pastel artist? Or?
No, I do pastels and I do oils. I work actually with the water miscible oils. That's what they're calling them.
Water miscible?
Water, yeah. And I have a really hard time with solvents, and so now there's all these wonderful oils that they create that are that you use water as your solvent rather than anything that's really bad for you.
Do they dry faster?
They dry a teeny bit faster, but they're not like acrylics. They don't dry on contact or anything like that.
So you have time to work with them.
Oh, yeah, and you can work back into them. And it's kind of nice because while you're working them, they, you can kind of give it a day if you need to sort of go back over something, and it works pretty nicely. Gives you a little bit of time. By the way, what I'm doing right now is I work just mostly with shapes. I always say to my students, everything is just shape. So I'm putting in color fields of these shapes before any kind of detailing goes in.
So it's the actual, you're blocking the colors out.
Yes, I'm blocking them in.
So why did you decide to use that, to talk about your piece for a second, why did you decide to use this brown background?
The background. So basically, I think almost any background other than too light a background for me, or or white, which I wouldn't use either, will work as far as probably any image that I would choose to do. But I try to stay pretty consistent with whatever colors I use because this color that you see, any color that you see, will completely change depending on what paper you're putting it on and what background.
Because pastel's a little translucent?
No, because it's affected by how, if I put this on, say, white.
The green pastel that you have right now?
This is the color you're going to have. And if I put it here, it's going to react differently because it's going to be influenced by whatever's behind it. And so, whatever color it's on. So what I really try to do, it's not so much that I care. I do have a warm palette. I do like these colors. I'm aware that I can make things work with other colors as well. But you get used to it, and then I don't have to think as much about how's it going to react on this piece of paper, as opposed to another one, because
You've been working
I get
for a
used
long
to it.
time. Yeah,
right.
You've been working
so
for a long time.
It, right.
Yeah, I love the warmth that it brings.
Yeah.
So you work in oils as well as
I do.
Pastels.
It's a very, very similar process because it comes from from the tone out, as opposed to watercolor where you have to kind of leave whites and everything. They're very, very forgiving. Both of them allow you to go over color and create changes and completely block, say, something you've done earlier, which I really like. It's very forgiving. The real difference ends up being that in pastel, you kind of do all your mixing on the paper, right here. Any other color I put is going to have to happen right here.
So do you do that with your finger or with one of those?
No, I never use my finger. It's just one pastel over another. Whereas with oils, you tend to do a lot more mixing ahead of time before you put it down.
And then apply it.
Yeah, so.
So when you look at a piece, is it the composition or is it the light that inspires you?
Usually, for me, the first thing I see is the light. That's the first thing I love in a painting or in a picture. And I do work from photos. I also work from life, and each of them has their advantages. Sometimes you'll see you'll be driving along and you'll see something, and you'll go, oh, that makes just such a great piece, and you want to do it. But you take it home and you look at it, and somehow it's not what it had been when you saw it. Whereas the opposite of that is also that if I'm working from a photograph, I have a chance to really work it, to think about it. And I don't try to copy a photo. I try to be inspired by it.
Oh, I like that. And I can tell that just by looking at this piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how the people are coming together.
Yeah, hopefully.
They are. No, I really think it's light that, that late afternoon, 4 o'clock light that
Definitely.
always inspires people.
They'll always tell you, go out early morning or late at night, late afternoon to get the long shadows.
That's why I've always been curious about field work, or as they call it in French, en plein air, which basically means
field outside.
Outside,
Yeah.
That the light changes so quickly, that would frustrate me.
It is. I mean, I always say when I'm teaching an outdoor class, a plein air class, I always say, plein air is all about commitment. Like you don't have a chance to think about it continuously. You have to commit to something and say, all right, now that's it. Whereas if you're working in this way, you can say, well, the light, I can leave, I can go have lunch, I can, and everything's going to be the same when I get back. There are a lot of people who really feel the only painting is plein air painting. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I'm not a snob.
Well, it's not. I understand it. I don't. Yeah, and I admire it, but I actually really admire it, and I'm amazed by what a lot of people will do.
But to
in
give
bad
themselves,
weather.
it's just. I just feel like you're giving yourself extra restrictions.
Well, I think for me, it's always about the final product, and if the final product works, as a plein air, that's great, and if it works this way, that's great. I would challenge, other than knowing that probably I didn't have time to say work something, but I don't find that I work that much, that my work looks different. I try, it's whether it's plein air or whether it's from a photo. Oops, wrong color. I like it to be very fresh and give the feeling that it's right there. One of the things I do totally love doing from life are nudes, and that's something that I
But
really,
the light doesn't generally change, and
yeah, and
when
also
you're in
it's
the studio.
just it's so I love doing them. There's such an immediacy, and
That was one of my questions: is what kind of subjects do you enjoy working on?
Yeah,
Do you prefer a landscape, or do you prefer?
I've
people
gotten
and
into really
pieces?
enjoying landscapes and what they can do. I like them a lot. I think, my absolute favorite thing is you have a great model, and it really matters who your model is. It's not like anybody is going to be wonderful. And you work, from that, and it's a real exchange between you and the model when you have a really, really good model. I've had some great models, and
Cool.
not such great model. When it's not such a great model, I sort of get frustrated and bored. But a good model moves well, is fun to draw. The light goes really beautifully on them.
On their body.
And then it's almost like, it just draws itself. And I love to work in any medium from life.
Is it
from a
easy to
model.
find models around here?
No, it's really, really hard to find models around here.
I was thinking since it was a college town, you might be able to.
No, it's hard. I was spoiled. I did part of my training in San Francisco. My second place that I first was at an undergrad at Cornell, and although I was a art major, I really can't say I had a lot of direction back then. And then, about 5 years later, I went back for illustration at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. And then I taught there before we moved to this area, and that was amazing. They were amazing. What they taught was amazing. And we had incredible models. But here it's a lot harder to find good models.
You know, it's hard to strip when you're living in such coldness.
Well, you know, I'm
kidding.
happy to do, I don't have to do nudes. I mean, I'm actually super happy to and sometimes prefer doing, you know, figures that are not nude, you know, who kind of have a little character because of what they're, you know.
Interesting looking people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. I was wondering what kind of pastels you're using for those who might be curious.
Yeah, so there's several pastels that I use. My absolute favorite, which are these guys here, sort of squared like that. These are called Terry Ludwig. They're wonderful, soft, exactly the right size to cup in your hand. They're perfection. And
So are they considered, I know there's a category called soft pastels, so they're considered
yes.
soft pastels.
Yeah, I really only use soft pastels for the
What
most
are
part.
pan pastels? I never even
Pan
heard of that.
pastels, they come like in a circle, and they're like
Oh,
the
you have to-
dust,
yeah.
and you kind of brush them. I don't work that way.
Literally in a pan.
Yeah, they're in a pan.
Okay.
Well, they're not really in a pan. I mean, they're circled, and I guess
Circle
I don't know,
shaped.
because I tend not to use. And I just really like using.
Well, the soft
ones
pastels
like
are
these.
very, very forgiving and create a nice
They're
feel
like
to it.
brushstrokes, you
Yeah.
know, and you can really, work with them that way, which I love. I also use, there are others that I use besides him, but he's probably the only one I've bought recently, like, because I had some of the others.
So do you have to buy them online, or is there, I know there's a place in...
They don't sell them locally.
Yeah.
They don't sell, the only it's a shame. It's difficult, and, you know, I like to support local businesses and stuff, but it's unfortunate with art supplies, it's almost impossible to really do that. Just because, you know, the quality that you need is just not what most people.
It's
know.
your most important tool.
Yeah.
They are really yummy colors. I don't know whether the
Yeah.
camera can see her art box, but it's a stunning,
They're really,
stunning gradations of different colors.
yeah, they are really, they're great. And I also use Unison pastels that are out of England. Those are very nice.
Are those soft pastels
They're
as
all
well?
soft. They're all soft. They're not quite as, there would be like, let's see, do I have one here?
Did you always
Probably do
work with...
somewhere. Probably this.
Did you always work in pastels, or...
No, when I was a student, I did not work in pastels. I kind of was doing a lot of illustration and just resolving it using sort of a technique I wouldn't even use now, and wasn't probably all that successful then either.
That's what being a student's all about.
Right.
Sort of developing your signature.
Style, right. And then one of the first jobs that I didn't do a lot of illustration. I mostly taught. But I did do a little bit of illustration when I first got out of the academy. And one of the things one of the first jobs I had was to do packaging that was, well, I didn't do the packaging, but the picture on the package for a series of classical music tapes. They were tapes back then.
Ah, I know that generation
Yes.
well. Audio cassettes.
Right. And so they hired me because of the style that they saw, but I just thought, wow, this would be so great. Instead of what I do normally is to do a conducting with his hair flying and his hands going up in pastel. But because they hired me for the other one, I had to bring them two possibilities. And they immediately went with the pastel, and that was kind of when I started doing pastels.
So they hired you for one style, and you convinced them with your talent to go with the other style.
I actually don't know that they would have used the one that I did. I don't think they particularly liked it, and so I was happy to have something that they might like instead, which is what they ended up using, yeah.
Excellent.
And that's when I started, and that was quite a few years ago.
And so, do you show your works in a
Yes.
gallery, or are you a art festival person?
No,
who goes
I
from-
do galleries. I'm in, well, the best gallery probably that's been the best for me is up in Maine in Camden
Really?
Falls Gallery. And I'm in a gallery on Long Island called William Reese Gallery. That's fairly new for me. I'm in Michigan at a little gallery on Mackinac Island. Anyway. And
Interesting. And
few
how
others.
do they like contact you and say,
Yeah, for
hey,
the
I
most
really
part,
want to just sell your work? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been lucky. They've mostly found me, although I did recently contact and I think it's going to work out up in Green Mountain Gallery up in Stowe. We just got in touch with each other, and I'm
Ones
hoping
that you want to be in, galleries that you want to be in. And do they? How does a gallery? They don't buy your piece outright.
No,
they
no. It's all consignment.
So they have a limited amount of space,
Yeah.
and they have to decide what they think is going to sell to the audience. That
Right,
they're-
right.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, and then, sometimes, I've been in galleries where I wasn't the right fit, and it did, and that's fine. It didn't work, and
Yeah, some of it's
go
price
somewhere else.
point and size of the piece. I imagine
Yes.
something. The place up in Maine, is that along the beach or is that up in the mountains?
it's, Camden at all, it's a harbor, so it's on the harbor.
That's what I figured. So
Yeah.
you have a lot of beach pieces. So I imagine.
I do have a lot of beach,
Imagine
beach
they
pieces.
like
I
those.
wish I was better at, I have some boat pieces. I'm not great at boats, but I've done them. He does a lot of marine paintings. I'm not really a marine painter, but he's a wonderful guy, and I love that gallery, and it's been very nice for me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So
But they're seasonal, and that can be an issue, too.
Right, because you want your work to sell all the time.
Yeah, I'm not in very many galleries that are
So
all year round.
Do you do a lot of demos like you're doing for us?
I do. I teach, first of all. I teach actually I teach oil painting every Monday in Hanover at the community center. in 6
Is that the
increments.
one near the co-op? Is
Yes.
that the community center?
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
just.
so I'm always demoing and teaching, but I demoed twice actually at the Plein Air, the big Plein Air convention they do it every year somewhere else. That's a national Plein Air convention, and they have 4 stages, and I was on the Pastels stage.
Cool.
So yeah, that was kind of fun. I figured if once I did that, nothing else could make me that nervous,
Hundreds of people watching
Yeah,
you.
basically, basically, and
No
they like-
pressure at all.
Well, right, no pressure, and
So I assume that's not what you enjoy about teaching, though? The pressure of people sitting and watching.
I don't feel, my groups that I teach to, only on the first day am I ever a little, because I teach throughout the country. And so the first time that I'm teaching somewhere, I'm a little more nervous about the first day, but that usually goes away pretty quickly. I love to teach, and I often think I'm better at that, really, than I am as a painter.
Then you must be an amazing teacher because some of these pieces are really super.
Well, I love to teach, and it matters to me how my students do, and it matters to me that I see them, that I communicate with them. And I think part of the reason is that I wasn't such a natural student the way some people are. Some people, just are really naturally gifted, and I really wasn't one of them. And so I understand the different stages that people go in when they're working. I understand, how difficult something can be. And then I think back on, well, what broke it for me? What did I do, or what did I learn? Nope, too light. That, that made that work for me. And so I've kind of come up with some terminologies that hopefully are helpful. To kind of help people. I used to think you couldn't even learn this stuff, and then I found out, you can really learn to.
Right, there's decisions there's too many decisions to make. People get
Nervous.
they just sort of get stopped, like
Right.
what should I do next?
Right.
So having some direction and
Really helps.
watching a professional make some of those decisions just intuitively.
Yeah, demos are, when I was in school, originally I had a very nice time at Cornell, but fine art departments in universities back in the 70s, just, it was a lot of this express yourself, but no nothing that gave you any ability to express yourself because you didn't know what you were doing and nobody was telling you what to do. No one ever demoed anything. It was like, I can't imagine teaching a visual form and not doing the visual form so that people, so when I say I work with shapes and I put in color fields and they can see it. This is what I'm, whereas if you just get that explained to you verbally, how are you going to understand what's happening?
It's funny, my mother was finishing her master's of fine art in the 70s, and she was a middle-aged woman with kids, and there was a certain snobism that, like they didn't want to, they kept wanting her to do more pieces, and she finally was like, no, I'm done. I've satisfied all the requirements. Why are you torturing me?
Well, there was a lot of, I remember I had a great sculptor. Sculpture was actually, although I wasn't very good at it, but there was a guy that, he did the traditional sculpture of, you did a figure from the figure, and he was very kind of
literal.
Well, he was great, but a lot of the students, at that time were very poo-pooing that, everything was supposed to be something other than that. And, the truth is that's what I wanted to learn. Okay. And I was kind of like out of my element trying to learn these things in a situation where that's not what they were really teaching. And so when I went back to school at the Academy for Illustration, that's when I started to really not only learn, but have a direction that excited me. And then I really wanted to do this all the time, whereas I never felt that way before.
I imagine without demonstration, that must have been really hard.
It's ridiculous, actually.
So you teach. I found you through your website, so I was just wondering if you could share that address with everybody.
It's just my name, AlineOrdman.com.
So it's AlineOrdman.com. Okay.
And there's links to a blog. My blogs aren't very verbal. They're usually just whatever
visual.
The latest thing I've done is. It'll go on a blog before it'll go on to my website, which I try to.
And you have a Facebook page.
I definitely do. It's it's at this point it's a personal page. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you have to get an art page." I don't know.
Whatever.
It's a little too much for me to do.
You are your
right
art.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't really post much personal stuff. It's mostly just my art.
Yeah, many artists I know, they will post something at the beginning of a piece and somewhere in the middle and then at the end,
Yeah, I usually forget to take pictures at the beginning, so it tends to be
mostly. It's a piece of paper.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it ends up being pretty much, the end piece, but it's been, it's a good situation. There's so many amazing artists out there, and I'm, getting to know them on Facebook in a way that, I wouldn't know that many contemporary artists without Facebook, because I don't live in every state. I don't live in every country.
That must be fun.
Great.
It must be fun and inspirational to see other people's work.
Inspirational.
You ever feel a little jealous, like, ooh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
oh, totally. And I always say
it's the driving factor.
Oh, I always say the best compliment I can give you is to say, I'm really jealous of that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think we're running out of time.
Okay.
I
think this
really
is done.
appreciate you coming in, and whoever's watching television will probably be enjoying this tremendously.
Thank you. Well, I had a great time.
Well, thank you.
I'm filthy, but
please, you're supposed to be. I'm just going to say goodbye. If you are interested, anyone in the Upper Valley, if you're interested in being a host of one of the Closer Look shows, we would love to have you. I'd rather it not be me. I'd rather it be engaged people in the community, and you could either propose a topic, or we have topics like, I know next week we have Katie Colt, who is going to host, and Upper Valley Habitat for Humanity is going to be the guest, and we'll find out, we'll take a closer look at that. So if you would, please give us a call if you want to be a host or you want to be a guest on A Closer Look. Have a nice day.